Did you know that you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership? If you haven't heard about Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. And best of all, there's absolutely no charge to do so. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so you can be heard all over the place on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. It is definitely everything that you need to make a podcast in one place, one-stop shop. Make sure that you download that free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You are tuned in to a female-hosted podcast who values you and your time. Each week, I will deliver short and sweet perspectives with no sidekick. So please, sit back, put your feet up, and allow me to bring you Drea's point of view. You are tuned into Drea's point of view, and I am your hostess, Drea. And today's topic will talk about transformational or transactional. I listened to a podcast and they talked about transactional relationships. And I was curious about it, so I figured I'd do a little research. According to those relationships, they believe in kind of like a give and take. You scratch your back, you scratch mine. Everybody does something to get something type thing. So I'm like, oh, okay. So those people are takers. And then I looked it up and I'm like, not really. Because there are givers, there are takers, and there are matchers. Givers are the category that I fall in, and we support those people with no strings attached. We give clothes away to homeless shelters just because they need it. We take care of a sick friend or our parents when they get older, not necessarily because they did it for us, but because we're just kind people. We don't expect anything in return. The takers are those that are self-focused. They get a lot more out of their interactions than they put in. And then there's those who are in the transactional relationships. They want an equal balance. So if you take from me, I'll take from you. I give you a gift, like flowers, and I'm going to expect you to give something to me in return. And I'm like, what kind of, I don't know. That's not a relationship that I'd want to be in. And I tried to think, because in every relationship, I don't care what it is, it's not always going to be 50-50. Somebody's always going to be doing a little bit more work than someone else. And it's really up to you whether or not you are going to tolerate that or not. I mean, you do something for somebody just to get something. I don't know. To me, that's just not something that I want to do. And I think I've only been in a relationship like that maybe once, and it didn't last. Transactional relationships. Both parties are like every man for themselves. They only do things to get something in return. Whereas the transformational relationships are more meaningful and they're based on desire. The transactional ones are based on what you need. The transformational relationships are about giving and making changes for the better. You have to be affected to be able to really express yourself. So if you're in a transactional relationship, you actually let me backtrack on that more about the givers. If you are a giver, you tend to lead those givers tend to lead to quality relationships and tend to be happier than the takers. There are two types of givers, which I didn't really realize you're either selfless or you're otherish. Selfish, you give to no end, and sometimes you make your needs come in second. If you're otherish, you're more strategic about giving, and you make it whereas others don't take advantage of the situation. I guess I could be a little bit of both, but I'm definitely a giver. Now, getting back to the differences, the transactional relationships, they pretty much use people for their gifts. They are the transactional consumers. They, as opposed to the transformational ones, focuses on love, inspiration, and how to please someone else instead of being pleased. These kind of relationships, they may exhaust you, but they do leave you feeling full. And they explore dreams and possibilities as opposed to doubts. Unfortunately, most relationships do tend to be transactional, but that can also lead to scorekeeping. I did for you, now it's your turn. And that's just not healthy. Mother Teresa once said, "Intense love doesn't measure, it just gives." So given the choice, which kind of relationship do you prefer? You have been tuning in to Drea's Point of View. I can be heard on Podbreed Network, Good Pods, Top Black Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Spreaker, and more. Feel free to leave me a comment on my website, www.dreaspointofview.com, or on social media. I'm on Facebook and IG, Drea's Point of View, as well as Twitter, Drea Point. It's been my pleasure bringing you a part of me, and I hope that you remain to be a listener. Until next time, take care.